Please be seated. Right before I was ordained a deacon, the day before, in fact, then Bishop, the late John Shelby Spong, gave a day of recollection to the four of us who were about to be ordained. And one of the things he said to us was, if I come to visit you in your church, and for an entire year you have never preached the lessons from the lectionary, you're going to have a problem with me. And if I come to your church, and for an entire year you've only preached from the lectionary, you're also going to have a problem with me. Because the Word of God, he said, comes not just from the Scriptures, but from many other sources. And so this morning, with that Episcopal instruction in mind, I'll leave you this week to a meditation on the epistle and the gospel. Okay? And you should, I encourage you to really do that. I'm sorry, I'm old and probably repetitious. The little bulletins that you have? Okay, the Episcopal Church actually kills rainforests full of trees every year so that you can have those bloody things. Take them home. Don't turn them into paper airplanes. Put the lessons up on the refrigerator. This is the spiritual meal for the week. This is where we are at our spiritual fathers and spiritual mothers. The Scriptures are the leftovers you get to take home and munch on all week. Okay? So do yourself a favor, like a good stew or a good soup. I promise you the Scriptures are better heated up. So please. But what I want to talk to you about this morning is this notion of prayer and how to stand before God in prayer. And part of what strikes me about the gospel is both of these men are being truthful. Now, the first guy obviously is being arrogant, but both of them are telling the truth. We have the best of, biblical Judaism and the Pharisee, and we have the worst, the collaborator with the enemy, the one who steals and embezzles from his own people. So how is it that we are invited and commanded to stand or sit or kneel before God in prayer? I want to read for you one of my favorite prayers, and I commend it to you. It's called the Prayer of Thomas Merton. Thomas Merton was a real jazz swinger, low-life guy from the 30s who led a very dissolute life as a junior professor at Columbia, and then was converted to Catholicism and very soon entered the monastery at Gethsemane. Gethsemane is a Trappist monastery. They take vows of poverty, chastity, obedience. They also take a vow of stability, which means they will never move any place but their own monastery. And these guys take a vow of silence. They were one of the first people on earth to develop a sign language because, except when they're at prayer or there's some specific need, they don't speak. This is one of the strictest orders in the Roman Church, and this is where Merton found himself. And Merton published over 50 books and hundreds of articles and essays. And this is my favorite, and it speaks to what I want us to hear this morning about prayer, because it seems to fit our current situation. At least so it seems to me. My Lord God, I have no idea where I'm going. I do not see the road ahead of me. I cannot know for certain where it will end. Nor do I really know myself. And the fact that I think that I'm following your will doesn't mean that I'm actually doing so. But I believe that the desire to please you does in fact please you. And I hope that I have that desire in all that I'm doing. I hope that I will never do anything apart from that desire. And I know that if I do this, you will lead me by the right road, though I may know nothing about it. Therefore will I trust you always, though I may seem to be lost and in the shadow of death. I will not fear, for you are ever with me, and you will never leave me to face my perils alone. Amen. Now, by the way, if I were really organized like your rector, I would have had copies of this made and put into the bulletin, but I'm hopefully lovable, but not always all that bright. So I couldn't do that. But go on the internet and just Google the prayer of Thomas Merton, or just Google Thomas Merton, and it will be one of the first things that come up. Now remember, this is a man who writes this prayer after a number of years in a monastery, in a strict monastery, where his life is patterned out day by day to the minute, right? 12:06, prayer, 12:35, lunch, right? His path is crystal clear. He can walk out of the back of the monastery and see the graveyard where he will be buried. And yet he prays, Lord, I don't know where I'm going. I can't see the road ahead. Does that sound familiar? Yeah, it does. At this time and in this place, both individually, as a congregation, and as a larger community, church and world, that's a great way to start prayer, because it's for most of us the truth. By the way, all prayer has to be rooted in what's real and what's true. People say to me sometimes, Father Jim, I can't pray. And I smile and I look at them and I say, well, I'm pretty sure you can. It's just you can't think of anything pretty to say to God. And you think you need to say something pretty, and you're afraid to say whatever it is that's actually on your heart, that's actually on your mind. And recalling the prayer we always open with, the Collect for Purity, which has its origins in one of the greatest English language books of spirituality and mysticism, The Cloud of Unknowing. To you all hearts are open, all desires known. The first time I walked into this church and I heard those words, the first time I came here for a Eucharist, I was sitting right over there. And, I didn't move. I'm socialized mostly. But I heard those words, and what I wanted to do, and what I actually did in my mind, was jump up and yell at the then rector, Lucinda Laird, would you just hold that thought, please? I need to go really think about that. I'll be back in a year or two. Because that's how long it's going to take for those words to sink in, because they are so clearly my own. Lord, I do not know the road ahead. And I don't really know myself. One of the great lessons of having been a shrink for 35 or 36 years is this. You get to know people really well. You get to know people with great intimacy. You get to know people who tell you secrets they don't tell anybody else. And yet that's still just the tip of the iceberg. You can be in therapy like me for 100 or 200 years. And you still only know the tip of the iceberg. That's a confession of faith, by the way. I do not really know myself. And the thought that I am doing what you want me to do doesn't mean that I'm actually doing it. Why? Because we make mistakes. We go off in the wrong direction. Or, very often, I think probably more than, marching off in the wrong direction completely, we get part of it right and part of it wrong, and we can't tell the difference between the two. And so we need to ask God's grace and God's guidance. But to have the desire to please God, to have the desire to do God's will, is in fact doing God's will. And Merton prays and invites us to pray with him, and I hope I never do anything apart from that desire. And that's a good thing to measure ourselves by the way, when we're going to do this or we're going to do that, or we're going off in this direction or that direction. Okay? Am I doing this out of a deep and deepening desire to do God's will, as opposed sometimes to my own, or to what the crowd is telling me to do, or what the herd is saying, or what I'm hearing, on television that tells me what I should think and who I should be afraid of and what I should buy. I want never to do anything apart from the desire to please God. Is that something good for us today, you think? As we try to figure out what the heck we're going to do next, as we emerge, and we haven't really emerged yet, but as we emerge from this pandemic, this global crisis that has had such profound local and immediate effects for all of us, as we sit here distanced and masked and trying to just get through to the other side. And as we emerge, the one phrase I do like from popular culture is there will emerge a new normal. It's just not ever going to be the same as it was. And I commend to you to look through the sweep of the scriptures, the sweep of the Old Testament, and God renewing his covenant and renewing it again after one disaster or another, after some of the disasters that the people bring on themselves and some that they don't. It's trying and begging for the grace to go inside and to pray and to be open to the movement of the Holy Spirit. And then, if I do this, I trust you will lead me by the right road. Wait for it. Even though I may know nothing about it. To be led by the right road, to trust in God's leading us, even though maybe we don't have any idea where we're going or where this is going to lead us. We just have to put one foot in front of the other. Again, sound familiar as like something we should be doing these days? I like to think of God as a divine GPS, which means God-like positioning system. Have you ever noticed when you pray and when you try to be faithful to our Lord that he only tells you one turn at a time, whatever the next turn is? Could you please show me the whole map? No. I'll show you the end. You're going into eternal life. But the middle, nah, one turn at a time is all you need. And that makes me anxious. You're driving someplace you don't know. Marie's driving. They don't let me drive, but, and not even in New Jersey. And I should be able to, I've been on 17, I can do at least that well. And here we are waiting for the next turn. And yet the great faith that we're taught in this crazy piece of technology. If we miss the road, if we miss the turn, if we're not paying attention or the voice is drowned out by background news, the next voice that we hear will say from this global positioning, this God positioning unit is recalculating. Recalculating. Because even though we get lost, God can always get us from here to there. There is no way that there's going to be a roadblock that God can't get us around. Again, very important. And so I will trust you. I will trust in you. I will trust in you. Not believe some intellectual beliefs, but I will trust you because you are a person, and because you love me, and because you have created me and loved me into existence, as he has every one of you, all of you. He loves you into existence moment by moment, and so I will trust you. I will trust you that you will lead me by the right paths, even though I may know nothing about it, and that you will never leave me to face my perils alone. The perils of a pandemic, the perils of being out of work, the terrors of not knowing which way to go in our lives, the losses that we all experience as we move through this thing. God will never leave us to face our perils alone. And so I commend this prayer to you. Literally, I encourage you to find it on the internet and to use it as a prayer, as God leads you and as you see fit in the discernment of the spirits in your life. But I also encourage all of us to adapt the attitude of this prayer. The attitude of the tax collector, which is what? Why does he go back to his home justified? Both of them told God like it is. The Pharisee wasn't lying about all the good stuff he did, because he was doing it. But he couldn't shut up to God about the fact that he was the one who was doing it. It was all about him. The tax collector's prayer was all about God and God's mercy and a trust in God's willingness even to reach down into his corrupt life and draw him into eternal life, draw him into a full life of the community. And so, with those things in mind, let's just pray that prayer again. My Lord God, I have no idea where I'm going. I do not see the road ahead of me. I cannot know for certain where it will end. Nor do I really know myself. And the fact that I think that I'm following your will does not mean that I'm actually doing so. But I believe that the desire to please you does in fact please you. And I hope I have that desire in all that I'm doing. I hope that I will never do anything apart from that desire. And I know that if I do this, you will lead me by the right road, though I may know nothing about it. Therefore will I trust you always, though I may seem to be lost in the shadow of death. I will not fear, for you are ever with me, and you will never leave me to face my perils alone. Amen.